Imagine for a moment that you are a highly sophisticated biological robot. Your eyes are essentially high-fidelity cameras, your ears are sensitive microphones, and your brain is a wet, squishy supercomputer processing endless streams of data. Mechanically, we understand how this works. Signals come in, neurons fire, and muscles move. But there is something else happening, isn't there? You don't just process the wavelength of light bouncing off a flower. You experience the redness of a rose. You don't just register tissue damage as a binary signal to withdraw your hand. It actually hurts. This is the hard problem of consciousness. It is a term coined by the philosopher David Chalmers, and it poses the most difficult question in science. Why does physical processing give rise to a rich inner life? Why doesn't all this neural activity just go on in the dark, without any subjective feeling at all? For centuries, this question was the playground of mystics, theologians, and philosophers. But in the last few decades, consciousness has finally moved out of the armchair and into the laboratory. We are currently living through a golden age of consciousness science. It is an era characterized by high-stakes rivalries, billion-dollar experiments, and radical new theories that challenge our very place in the universe. Today, we are going to take a deep dive into the leading theories of consciousness, the dramatic battles being fought between them, and what the results mean for the future of artificial intelligence and our relationship with the animal kingdom. The scientific landscape is currently dominated by two heavyweights. These two theories are so prominent and so contradictory that the scientific community recently organized a massive adversarial collaboration. This was a multi-lab experiment designed specifically to pit them against each other directly to see which one would remain standing. Let's look at the first contender, Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. The architect behind this is Giulio Tononi from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. IIT proposes a fascinating idea. It argues that consciousness starts from the inside out. It suggests that consciousness is a fundamental property of any system that has a specific kind of causal structure. It is not about what the brain does. It's not about input and output. It is about what the brain is. According to IIT, a system is conscious if it possesses integrated information. They even quantify this with a mathematical value called phi. The core concept is that a system with high phi is more than the sum of its parts. You cannot reduce it to smaller, independent components without losing information. Based on this, IIT predicts that the physical seat of consciousness is located in the posterior hot zone, the back of the brain. This is where the neural grid is incredibly dense and highly interconnected, perfectly suiting the theory's requirements. The vibe here is almost panpsychist. It implies that if a simple grid of logic gates, or even a thermostat, has a tiny bit of phi, it possesses a tiny bit of consciousness. In the other corner, we have the Global Neuronal Workspace Theory, or GNWT. This theory is championed by Stanislas Dehaene and Bernard Bars. Unlike the structural approach of IIT, GNWT is functional and architectural. It views the brain as a collection of specialized unconscious processors handling things like vision, language, and motor skills. In this model, consciousness is the spotlight of attention. When a piece of information becomes strong enough, it ignites. It is broadcast to a global workspace, a network of neurons located primarily in the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain. Once information reaches this workspace, it becomes globally available for speech, memory, and action. That global broadcast is what we call subjective experience. This theory predicts that consciousness happens in the front of the brain and that it is an all-or-nothing event. Either you are conscious of a stimulus, or you aren't. It views consciousness as software sharing data. So what happened when these two giants clashed? The results of the adversarial collaboration were released recently, covering experiments conducted through 2024 and 2025. The verdict was a shock to the system. It was a double knockout. Both theories stumbled. IIT had a partial victory because the experiments confirmed that the posterior hot zone in the back of the brain was indeed more active during conscious experience than the front. However, the theory failed because the specific type of sustained synchronization between neurons that it predicted was simply not observed. On the other side, GNWT took a heavy hit. This theory relies on the idea of an ignition in the prefrontal cortex. The experiments found that while the front of the brain did light up at the start of a conscious experience, it didn't stay active. Crucially, it didn't light up reliably at the end of the experience, which implies the global broadcast isn't sustaining the feeling. The result is that the big two are both incomplete. The field is now wide open. While the giants fight over the location of consciousness, a third contender is quietly winning over the explanation of how it works. This is known as predictive processing, or active inference, championed by researchers like Carl Friston and Anil Seth. This theory offers a radical shift in perspective. It suggests that you are not seeing the world, you are hallucinating it. Predictive processing argues that the brain is a prediction machine. It does not passively receive sensory data. Instead, it is constantly generating a model of what it expects to see, hear, and feel. The mechanism is a controlled hallucination projected outwards. The sensory data coming in from your eyes and ears only serves to correct the prediction. These are error signals. If you expect to see a dog and you see a cat, your brain updates its model. In this view, subjective experience is the top-down prediction that best explains the current sensory data. Anil Seth takes this a step further with the concept of the beast machine. He argues that our most fundamental prediction is not about the outside world, but about our internal biological state, the state of being alive. We predict our heart rate, our hunger, our temperature. Our sense of self is just a control mechanism to keep the biological machine alive. We feel, therefore we are. If these biological explanations feel too dry or computational, the fringes of consciousness science offer wilder alternatives. One such theory is quantum consciousness, specifically orchestrated objective reduction, or Orch OR. The architects here are the Nobel laureate Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They argue that consciousness isn't a computation at all. It is a quantum event. They believe that the classical physics of neurons is insufficient to explain the non-computational nature of understanding. Instead, they look inside the neurons, at the microscopic scaffolding called microtubules. They propose that quantum processing occurs within these structures and that consciousness is the result of a gravity-induced collapse of the quantum wave function. For a long time, this was dismissed as fringe science because brains were considered too warm and wet for quantum states to survive. However, the theory has seen a resurgence as recent experiments in quantum biology have shown that quantum effects can indeed survive in biological environments, making the theory less impossible than previously thought. Then, there is the most counterintuitive theory of all, illusionism, supported by philosophers like Daniel Dennett and Keith Frankish. They argue that the hard problem is actually a magic trick. Illusionists claim that we don't actually have qualia. We don't truly experience the redness of red, we just think we do. They propose that the brain constructs a user interface that simplifies the complex machinery of neural firing into a smooth experience. In this view, introspection is a liar. We are essentially zombies who are convinced we are conscious. The hook of this theory is that it solves the hard problem by deleting it. If there is no subjective experience to explain, the problem vanishes. These debates are not just academic exercises. They determine how we treat other minds sharing our planet and the minds we are currently building. In April 2024, a group of prominent scientists signed the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness. This declaration fundamentally shifted the ethical landscape. We used to demand absolute proof before admitting an animal might be conscious. The declaration argues this is backwards. It asserts there is a realistic possibility of consciousness not just in mammals and birds, but in reptiles, fish, and crucially, invertebrates. This includes octopuses, who are famously intelligent, but also potentially insects and crustaceans. If a theory like IIT is correct, where the structure of the system dictates consciousness, a bee or a crab might have a potent, albeit alien form of consciousness. This demands a revolution in animal welfare laws. Finally, we face the AI dilemma. With the rise of large language models like GPT-4 and Claude, the question of, is it conscious, has moved from science fiction to the boardroom. A recent paper titled Consciousness in Artificial Intelligence proposed a new way to test AI using indicator properties. Instead of asking the AI if it is conscious, we check if its architecture matches our best theories. The results are mixed. Current LLMs check some boxes. They have attention mechanisms, but they fail others. From the view of global neuronal workspace theory, they lack a true global workspace that broadcasts information system-wide in a unified way. They are mostly feed-forward statistical engines. From the view of integrated information theory, standard computers have incredibly low phi. Their architecture is linear, not interconnected. According to IIT, you could simulate a human brain perfectly on a digital computer, and it would be a zombie, acting conscious but feeling nothing. However, from the predictive processing view, things get tricky. LLMs are prediction machines. If consciousness is just next token prediction applied to sensory data, we might be closer to creating artificial consciousness than we think. We are currently in a fascinating scientific limbo. The adversarial collaboration showed us that our top theories are flawed. The rise of AI is forcing us to define exactly what consciousness is before we accidentally create it, or deny it to a being that has it. For now, the only thing we know for sure is the experience itself. The words I am speaking, the weight of the device in your hand, and the feeling of curiosity. Everything else is a theory waiting to be proven.